Buying down your interest rate requires a buyer to pay points. What is a point? A point is 1% of the loan amount. So in this video, when I talk about points, paying points to get a lower interest rate, a point is simply 1% of the loan amount. So if it's 2 points, 2% of the loan amount, 3 points, 3% of your loan amount. When you're looking at getting your first mortgage, you want to understand what a buy down is or what paying points are. You see, when you get a mortgage, you'll see an actual interest rate being advertised. And most of the time, that interest rate may or may not come with an additional cost. Most of the time, when lenders quote a rate, they should be quoting you the rate without points. Now, if they are charging you points, they would actually have to tell you that, hey, this interest rate comes with points. So I'm going to show you how this works and how you can kind of look at this and see if it makes sense to you and your family for a buy down. Now, the interest rates change every single day. So the interest rates that I'm going to go over with you today, right now we're in October of 2023. Right now, interest rates are about 7.5% with no points. So this is no points, 7.5%. So let me show you how this actually works. So let's say you were buying a house for $300,000 and the interest rate was 7.5%. Now, your payment would be right at $2,600. We're going to assume that you're not doing any down payment assistance. You're going to come in with 3.5%. We don't have any seller credits. And so your cash to close is, let's say, $20,000 to buy this $300,000 home. At 7.5%, this is no points. Now, you could pay, let's say, 1% up front and pay an extra $3,000, so your cash to close goes to $23,000, and your payment drops from $2,600 to $2,500, and your interest rate goes from 7.5% to 7.25%. So you pay an extra $3,000 to save $50 per month. Now, you may or may not want to do this. You might be thinking, this might be a great deal because this is a 30-year loan, so over 30 years, I'm going to save a lot of money. And that's true, but most of the time, most people don't have their mortgage for longer than 5 to 7 years. And so you want to count on kind of looking at this as like a 5 to 7 year plan. Now, if interest rates were to drop, let's say rates go to 6% after you buy after 1 year, and that could very well happen. It's happened many, many times before. Interest rates are very, very volatile. And so let's say you paid just 1% of $3,000 and you save $50 per month. And let's say after year one, interest rates go from 7.5% down to 6%. And I want to refinance. So let's say you're going to pay off this loan. Well, you go to pay off this loan, but wait a minute, you actually paid $3,000 extra to save $50 a month. So you only had this loan for 1 year or 12 months, or you actually saved only $600 for that year. However, you paid $3,000 to save $600. So this is why you want to be careful about paying points, because it may or may not be worth it. The longer you're going to be in this loan, the more it may make sense for you to do a buy down. But if we're in a higher interest rate environment like we are today, my recommendation would be to pay as least amount of points as possible for your mortgage and try to get a loan without paying points. Now, sometimes loans, for example, first-time homebuyer loans, they will all come with points. Most of the first-time homebuyer loans come with an additional 2 points up front, and there's no way to avoid paying those 2 points. So sometimes you can't get away from paying points, but if you can, if you're doing a regular loan and you're putting money down and you're going to be paying your closing costs, then you do have the opportunity to pay or not pay points. And so this is why you want to take a look at it. In this example, I'm going to scroll down now. I'm showing you, okay, pay 2% to save 0.5% on the rate, and then you can pay 3% to save 0.75. Now, this isn't always going to be exact on the cost of how much the rate and the cost of the buy down can constantly change. So it can be more or less each rate drop, but this gives you a good idea. So every time you get a mortgage, you can kind of get an idea, get a quote for what a buy down might cost. So if we look at the savings over 5 years on this, you'll see, I'm going to move my video here. you'll see that, in 5 years, this shows you the total interest that you would pay on the mortgage plus the closing costs. So you can see here the closing cost goes up with the more points that you have. So the 3% cost for the lower rate, you spend less interest than what you would on option 1 over 5 years, but you pay more upfront. And so the total that you would pay is 123 versus 126. So you would save in 5 years about 2,300. Now, if we reduce this down to, let's say we did 2 years instead of 5 years, this is where you're like, okay, so and if we go 2 years, now we're 2 years looking at the cost over 2 years. Well, now it makes sense to not pay any points at all. So it's really, how long are you going to have this mortgage? How long are you going to be borrowing this money? Remember, you can refinance or sell the home. And that is kind of where you want to look at making sense of paying points or no points.